Tough act to follow. No, he's really thoughtful. Hopefully, like I said, my goal is to stimulate your thinking, and hopefully you can take one or two things back with you, incorporate it into what you do. I don't claim to do anything super special or amazing. Everything that I've gotten, just like Alan said, I've stolen from somebody else, and sometimes I tweak things here or there to fit what, fit my players. So just a few thoughts before I start with the actual workout of things that I've seen other people do that impacted me a lot as a coach. One of them is watching coaches like Brett Brown or Ettore Messina, and they're asking their players questions in the practice or in the individuals, and it just really challenges guys. And I think also so many times players don't think the game, and we have to know the how and the why, and I think they need to know the how and the why too, that they're not just doing it and going through the motions without knowing what is the purpose of what we're doing here. So I always try to explain to guys, hey, this is a finishing drill, and what we are focusing on is full extension. Boom. So they know exactly what we're trying to get out of it. I think that's critical. I was very fortunate 2 seasons ago to visit the Philadelphia 76ers training camp. And as you know, the Sixers were absolutely terrible for a long time. I purposefully went to see the Sixers knowing that they were going to be a really bad team, because I said, hey, you know what? The next team I get is probably going to be really bad. And how does he motivate guys? And how does he get the spirit going when they all are predicted to be the worst team in the league and these things. So it was a great, great experience. But the best thing I got out of 3 days of being there was a little coaching tool that he used that I thought was amazing. So watching the practice, and there's a guy, at that time was Evan Turner, so maybe it was actually a little bit longer. Evan Turner was on the Philadelphia 76ers. And Evan was getting denied, and he's way out here, he's getting denied, and Brett Brown says, stop, Evan, back cut. Okay, okay. And then, again, later in practice, Evan, back cut. Okay, just your question. How many times do you correct a guy on the same mistake, right? Because then after the third time, they're like, yeah, I know, right? So it happened again. And Brett Brown said, Evan, coach yourself. And Evan said, back cut. Exactly. And then he turned a negative thing where people go, I know, into, he asked him a question, he knew it, he answered it right, and now he said, exactly. And now Evan felt good because he just told himself what the right thing to do was. It's a little thing, a psychological thing. But I was over in the stands blown away because it was not an accident. He knew exactly what he was doing. And I think all of us have experienced where you get a guy that's making the same mistake every time, and then they're just tuning you up. You've got to find different ways, I think, to do it. One of them is coach yourself. Now, you can't use coach yourself every time. You can say, hey, you're better than that, man. You're better than that. Or, I'm trying to find all these little tools to do exactly that. And an example also is Till, okay? So Till wants to be coached, and he's super hungry, and he plays hard all the time. One of his things is he gets locked in on things, okay? So as good a defender as he is, he's always played with his hands down, and we're really big on high active hands all the time. And he comes out like this because maybe that's what he was taught before that. It's just brainwashed in him. And so I said, and I'll tell him, Till, keep your hands up. Yeah. Keep reminding me, coach. Keep reminding me. And then at one point I said, no, coach, Till, I can't just focus the whole practice on you keeping your hands up. You got to be accountable for you keeping your hands up. You coach yourself to keep your hands up. Yeah, coach. And okay, that helped for a little while, but I got to constantly find those little different ways. Just like if you do the same drill every single day, it gets worn out. You got to keep it fresh. But that coach yourself one for me was a great, great tool. I thought it was amazing. because it flipped a very negative thing into a positive thing. And I think Brett Brown is an absolutely amazing coach. As bad as they were, he does a fantastic job of keeping the spirit up, motivating guys, teaching guys every single day, and it was just a great experience to watch. My next point, I've been, some of you have probably coached longer than I have. I started about 22 years ago from the very bottom, wiping the floors and washing the jerseys and stuff. But and I'm still growing as a coach. I haven't been a head coach for a very long time. But one thing is that I've really, I've emulated a lot of different coaches from the beginning. First, I loved Bobby Knight, and he'd chew guys and rip guys and scream and yell. And then I worked for a coach like that. And he was exactly like that. And he would get in your face and you thought he was going to punch you. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not that kind of guy. As much as I would want to try to do that at times, it's just not my personality. I don't have the energy level. Pezic, fantastic coach, but I could never coach like him. And so what I'm trying to do is refine myself as a coach. And so just like I tell players, because I used to scout, I scouted for the Nuggets. I learned a tremendous amount from a lot of NBA guys about scouting. One of the things that I learned while I was doing that is what we had to do as scouts is if we scouted a player that we thought was an NBA level guy, we had to say, who in the NBA is just like that guy, with size, with position, with athleticism, with skill sets, with role? Who is that clone, the exact same guy that's already in the NBA? You got to find that guy. And then, when I coach players, I try to find him and I say, hey, study him. What skills is he using to be really good at what he is? So like Till, for example, is not a very good shooter, okay? He knows that. Now, he's worked on it tremendously. He's great at getting to the rim. So I said, hey, I want, you're not as quick as Tony Parker, but Tony Parker's a guy that scores 80% of his baskets at the rim. Study all the different ways he gets to the rim and get as good as you can at a few of those things that fits your game, right? So I tell it to my players, so also I do it for myself. So I've looked, which coaches can I realistically be like or take things from? And so for me, I'm not a screamer and a yeller. I'm a positive guy. I'm an analytical guy. I'm a communicator guy. So like Brad Stevens. I lived in Boston. I watched maybe 10 Celtics practices. He never screamed one time, the whole time. But he holds guys accountable. And so we all have to find a way. We all have to hold our players accountable. That's a given. That's maybe the number one important thing that we have. And so I've got to find ways that fit my personality to hold guys accountable. I think it's number one, developing strong relationships with my guys. They know that I love them and care about them, and if they call me in the middle of the night and they need my help, I'll be there. That builds a lot of accountability there. I do a lot of stuff off the court, so watching video one-on-one in a non-confrontational way. And then having these different tools in practice that I can hold them accountable, coach yourself, and these kinds of things. And so I'm studying coaches that I think I can be like and trying to take the tools and the methods that they use. Another thing that I've really had success with is, regardless of how good the level of the players is praising progress. So, I'm a really positive guy, so even if a guy's not very good at something, I am praising, hey, before you were dribbling way up here by your shoulder, but now you're getting it down by your hip. It's much, much better. Can you see your improvement right now? So guys get motivated on when they know, hey, I've progressed, and they can see that progress. So I really try to put an emphasis, and I'll write it on my notes. Make sure to praise the progress. It's just to remind me, because I'll get caught up in stuff. The other thing is, I think everybody's got players like this, that every mistake is like earth-shattering. Like they're going crazy, okay? Great players don't do that. Every mistake is one step closer to being better and to being great. And I try to emphasize that a lot. Mistakes are good. Now, if you're making the same mistake over and over because you're lazy mentally and you're not putting enough focus in it, then that's not good. But if you're trying to do the right thing, you're focusing, you're making efforts, and you're making mistakes, that's okay, because you never get from 0 to perfect without mistakes. Impossible. So I try to change the mentality of guys that mistakes are a terrible thing. Hey, mistakes are good. Hey, you're pushing yourself. Great job. It's one step closer. Okay. The other thing is, you know, all these individual training is really like the hype right now. There's so many individual coaches, and it's a big, big emphasis. It's an emphasis for our team, the Hanau Whitecaps. We don't have a big budget, okay, but we want to get really good players. So, you know, when I'm talking to our German guys or the American guys that we're recruiting, it's all about, hey, we have an emphasis on developing our players. And so I always need an assistant coach that is an outstanding player development guy. So I had a really good guy, his name's Ryan Hanau. He just got a job with Hapoel Jerusalem, now working for Piangiani. And he was an amazing workout guy. And his philosophy was never say no. So if a player asked him to do a workout, regardless of what time it was, he never said no. The only time he didn't is when he was doing a project for me that was time, you know, centered. He said, hey, I got to get this video done. After the video's done, I come and work out with you. And we're lucky. We have some gyms that we can use, you know, a lot of access to. And now I've got a new guy, and the first thing I said is, hey, you got to be able to be a great individual guy, and you're never looking at your watch. You live for this job. I live for this job. You got to live for this job, you know. And so that's what we put a big, big emphasis on. Hey, we are going to develop players. We want to make you a different player from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And then, hey, if you're too good for us next year, I'll be the first one on the phone to coaches saying, take this guy, he works his butt off, he's a winner. And so that's how we've managed, for example, keep Cruz Pinkins and Ruben Spoden wanted to come, and some high-quality players that I'm very grateful that we've gotten. They're really hungry to get better, and they believe we will get better. But the other point I was going to make is there's the skill set part of individual.